In the winter of 1998, on a freezing, rain-soaked night in London's Whitechapel district, a 22-year-old journalism student vanished. Her name was Emily Carter. She was a journalism student who spent her nights researching local crime cases for her university. That night, she sent a single message to a friend. "I think someone is following me." Her phone went dead seconds later. She never made it home. The police response was immediate. They canvassed the streets and checked every available CCTV camera in the district. But after 48 hours, they had nothing. No witnesses, no fingerprints on the nearby railings, and not a single frame of footage showed Emily or anyone else leaving the area. The search eventually led to an abandoned alleyway where officers found two items: a black umbrella resting on the ground, and tucked beneath it, a letter smeared with blood. It contained 5 words: "He watches from the shadows." In a district as crowded as Whitechapel, a struggle usually leaves a mark: a scuffed wall, a drop of blood, or a witness. Here, the case file remained a total vacuum, presenting a level of forensic cleanliness that stalled the investigation before it could even begin. Detective Arthur Bennett took over the case. Bennett was a logical investigator, used to the chaotic and messy street crimes of modern Whitechapel. He was a man who relied on physical evidence and the predictable mistakes criminals usually make in crowded city streets. This chart shows what Bennett found when he cross-referenced Emily's case with local cold files. Over the last 20 years, a specific pattern emerged. Every few years, a young woman would vanish on a rainy night, leaving behind a single black umbrella. Even more striking was the lack of data at the crime scenes. In 20 years of police records, even the most meticulous criminals leave a trace. But across every one of these files, forensic teams found nothing, not even a single smudge of a shoe print in the mud. Bennett looked at the timeline again. The alignment of the dates and the recurring items suggested a level of precision that refused to fit into a standard criminal profile. He was looking at a pattern that seemed to ignore the way crimes actually happen in the real world. An anonymous tip eventually broke the stalemate, directing Bennett to an old building on Blackthorn Street. The caller was specific: go to the basement. Behind a hidden door in the basement, Bennett found a room covered in missing persons photos and strange symbols. In the center sat an old tape recorder playing a heavy, distorted voice on a loop, repeating that the shadows could not be stopped. As Bennett investigated the room, the lights cut out. He heard footsteps moving toward him in the dark. He clicked his torch, sweeping the beam across the floor. The room was empty, but a new letter had been dropped into the light. It was addressed to him. It read, "You are next." The blackout and the freshly dropped letter changed the nature of the investigation. Bennett was being watched, and the room in Blackthorn Street was less of a hideout and more of a trap. Bennett needed to know how far back this pattern went. He bypassed the recent digital records and began digging into London's physical archives, looking for anything that predated his 20-year timeline. In the records from 1888, he found the Shadow Walker legend. Witnesses from over a century ago described the same signature: a killer who struck during heavy rain and left behind bloody notes. But the trail stopped there. When Bennett found the official 1888 police ledgers, entire sections were torn out or blacked over with heavy ink, destroying the original writing. The missing pages from 1888 suggested that someone in the government had intentionally scrubbed the records, effectively hiding a threat that had existed for over a century. Later that night, as rain lashed against his apartment windows, Bennett sat with the archival files. In the silence of the room, he heard heavy, rhythmic footsteps approaching his door. Bennett looked toward the window. A dark, faceless silhouette stood perfectly still behind the glass. It didn't move. It simply waited in the rain. In its hand, the figure held a small, silver object: Emily Carter's necklace. Bennett had followed the evidence to its conclusion, connecting the missing girls to a century-old shadow. But by identifying the pattern, he had made himself the next subject in it. The following morning, the police found Bennett's apartment in ruins. The door had been forced open, the detective was gone, and a final message was scrawled on the wall: "The shadow never dies." The official investigation ended there. Emily Carter and Arthur Bennett were never found, and the case was eventually moved to the permanent cold file archives. Despite the case being closed, security cameras still occasionally pick up digital glitches on rainy nights. In these low-resolution frames, a tall, dark shape briefly appears on a street corner before the signal cuts to static. The patterns in Whitechapel suggest something predatory and permanent, woven into the very history of the streets, waiting for the rain to begin again. If you ever find yourself in Whitechapel on a rainy night, pay attention to the sounds behind you. If you hear footsteps following your own, do not turn around to see what is making them.